I'm going to show you guys why you should be buying Bitcoin during this aggressive dip that we've been seeing with which actually there's a lot more fear right now in the market than I think there should be. I'm going to explain to you guys why. I'm going to break it down, the articles that I've been, to cover over a lot of this fear that's been happening, uh, the bigger picture on Bitcoin, what the smaller picture looks like within the bigger picture, and of course, at the end of the day, why Bitcoin is such a great purchase in these levels right now. I'm going to show you guys right now. So right here, we all know that tariffs have been causing a ton of fear, causing potentially inflation to go up. That's the fear. And then now a potential recession that can occur due to this tariff fears. But this is not something that you should be feared of. For example, earlier today, we had 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, aluminum, and then it was taken away. The US backed down on those 50% tariffs. So there's a lot of back and forth going on. It's nothing that it's all negotiation at the end of the day, in my opinion. It is all just negotiation, and eventually this will all fade away, and we will be back, with easy money flowing into growth assets, risk on assets like Bitcoin and so on. We also have inflation. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We have a big inflation CPI report that's going to be coming out. We're going to get a better idea what that looks like and how that can influence the markets going forward, especially with a Fed interest rate meeting next week. So keep an eye out on that. But this isn't something I'm super worried about, because also Bitcoin, the amount of circulating supply gets curved down over time, and the amount of remaining supply keeps getting bought up. And this is still going down. It's not like it's propping up. Like, no, this is still dropping. Even today, there's a lot more Bitcoin that's being bought up than is being created, and the supply and demand is outweighing it aggressively. It's just there's so much fear, and I feel like a lot of investors and traders are kind of like getting overwhelmed by that, and they shouldn't be. And here's why. Let's go over the bigger picture on Bitcoin, right? We all know that we were all expecting February to be quite good. We were expecting March to be pretty good. But due to a lot of this fear, of course, we're going down. But at the end of the day, have we seen this before? Like similarly, right? Well, back in 2024, we've had a massive sideways correction happen where it lasted many months, and it was sort of also dropping down a little bit as we were progressing through 2024. Interest rates were rising. There was a lot of fear in the markets. There was even recession fear. There was fear of a continuation or another recession happening. But guess what? Eventually, it all just faded away. Things got better, and we started going up, and we went up hard. Like even from this low, we went up basically 100%. Not just that, during the top, at this time was right here, and we came all the way down, and we saw a 33% dip. Today, after this massive rally, and now we're trading sideways today. And I'm gonna show you guys this actually on this chart, so it's a little bit easier to look at. There's not much notes on this one. So ever since we started moving sideways, right? Well, if you take a look from the high all the way to the current bottom, it's just about the same as 30% down, right? And we all know that during Bitcoin bull cycles, there's going to be 20 to 30% dips that happen all the time. So it is possible, but I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to be looking for in order to try to confirm if this is the bottom or not. But we know that we just had another 30% dip. So it's like, why are people being feared out if the supply and demand is still strong? Bitcoin is now corrected a whole lot, and we still have a very positive future ahead of us, right? Just because there's macroeconomic fear doesn't mean the underlying thesis on like why we should be buying Bitcoin changes. None of it changes. It's just a really good asset that's now discounted even more. But during this time, this sideways consolidation and moving down a little bit more, during this time, yeah, there's fear. Instead of interest rates, now, well, there's potential of interest rate going up. That's part of the fear. I don't think that's very likely, because also there's a lot more, jobless claims. It's growing. You have just the economy isn't overall as healthy as people really think it is. So it's going to be very hard for the Federal Reserve to start raising interest rates at this time. That's just my opinion. But also during this time, we still have a much more institutional adoption happening, just like previously back here. During this long sideways consolidation right here, there was a lot of institutional buying. A lot of governments were buying. Different now, though, we have a lot of more states like in the U.S. buying. but the foundation when it comes to Bitcoin being adopted is just getting stronger. So we're doing the same thing. There's fear in the markets. There's just a lot of fear, potential recession, this and that. But at the same time, you still have a lot more Bitcoin being bought up than created. So really, nothing is different than we've seen previously. We're just at extreme fear, and that is no reason to be feared out of something that you believe in. And not just that, ever since we've been trading downward, the CME gap articles and all that have been propping up more. People are starting to look at that more. The CME gap is at 77K right here, right? We sort of kind of tested it back here previously. We were a few $100s off, but then we broke up a lot of momentum, a lot of positivity, and now we started breaking down lower of more terror fears and now potential recession. But when you look at it, right? Well, when you look at this a little bit more, you realize that, hey, we retested the CME gap this time for real. Like we actually maxed out that CME gap. And now we started pushing up a little higher. We do have the possibility at the end of the day. We still have the possibility until we have a bullish confirmation. Well, I'm going to show you guys what a bullish confirmation is going to look like, at least in my opinion. We have the potential of Bitcoin coming back down to a super strong support in the low 60,000s, right? We can potentially come all the way down to roughly $63,000 by the end of this month. It's very much possible as terror fears and recession fears just get pushed out more into the news media. It can cause fear, of course. But as of right now, there's two things we're going to look at is how can we know that we are going to be potentially coming down here? And how are we going to know that we have a bullish confirmation that we already maximized the dip and we're going to start moving up higher? Well, first, we're going to look over the downside potential first. But you got to keep in mind, too, we have inflation news coming out tomorrow, early in the morning, around market open. And then you have jobs reports coming out Thursday. And then next week, we have that interest rate meeting. So it's very important to keep an eye out on that. And if this inflation specifically, the CPI, if it comes out to be not in our favor for growth assets, risk on assets, then we can expect this to come down. If it is not in our favor, or regardless, if the price comes down, what we're looking for is that CME gap down here. So I'm gonna make this a different color to distinguish it a little bit better. But the CME gap down here, right? We can easily potentially retest it. And if we break and we actually start seeing candles close below it, the possibility of us coming down increases. We can potentially find support in the low 70,000s, like 72, 73,000 is very much possible. But if we do see enough momentum to break down into this red area, I would not be surprised if it tries to trade within this area a bit more. It's absolutely possible. But in order for this to happen, first the price needs to come down and actually start closing these candles underneath the CME gap here in the white line. Previously, we saw it break briefly, but we never had any candles close underneath this line. This right here is the actual CME gap, the original 77K CME gap being filled completely. So we reached it, we maximized it. Now we need to see if we're going to hold above it, and if we do come down below it, see candles close below it, and then that's going to open the path to potentially see Bitcoin come down more in a much more deeper value case. Now there's two things though, and this has to do with the bullish side of it. The first thing is, I kept saying in many videos, a lot of the deep value Bitcoin is being bought up by institutions, by whales, by states and governments. A lot of the deep value Bitcoin is being bought up. That is why we're not seeing prices really trade down here. In my opinion, we're not seeing prices trade down here for that long, because there's just not a whole lot of really liquidity enough to hold the prices down here enough. A lot of that deep value has been bought up. That's why we see it pumped up quickly here on no news. And then back here too, we saw it come down and then quickly pump back up. No news. There hasn't been any positivity. There's just more terror fear, recession fears are still there. There's nothing that has been changed. But instead, we are seeing, Bitcoin struggling to, hold these discounted values for that long. And on top of that, we started moving up higher. Now, with this structure we have right here, I was able to give you guys a bullish confirmation area up here. So what this means is by taking the low to the next swing high and then the swing low, creates this area here as a potential, as a potential pressure for Bitcoin to go up, and then try to find strong resistance up here. In this area, we also see that there is a 1 week liquidity at 87K that can act as a resistance. Coincidentally, like it always does, a lot of these liquidity walls tend to also overlap these like next stage confirmation areas that I have here for you guys. So in order for us to come up here though, this is the one key factor for us to come up, right? And that is this resistance area right here. So this resistance area is from the overall drop from the start of the new fear, that there's always like new stages of fear. So the new stage started here where it broke this triangle pattern that we were trying to hold the triangle pattern and push up higher. Instead, fear dropped it more. And then we saw the CME gap being filled again. Now, this overall drop gives us this retracement area, which is now acting as support. And I said this before, if we can push past this retracement area, that will give us enough bullish momentum to come up here, try to hit this 1 week liquidity, which will also be maxing out the top range of this one red structure here. And this can bring us up to where we can start seeing a bullish uptrend begin to create itself. But this retracement area is going to be the dividing factor on whether we have enough bullishness to push up into this confirmation area to form that bullishness that we need to finally go back up into like not just the 80s but the 90s and back up to 100K. If we could come up here, break past the 120 moving average, break up here and actually see some candles close within it with enough volume, then we can start seeing the price build up that bullish momentum. But if we don't break past this retracement area and actually start breaking into the green area sustainably, then this would just indicate that there is still enough bearish pressure that can bring us down a little bit more. There is one thing to look at, and I don't think this is super significant, but if you consider just a descending resistance line from here, we broke it. We got rejected, came back down, found support at the top of this extension area, pushed back higher, and now we're testing this retracement area. So if we can hold this, great. It can potentially create enough bullish momentum as we're seeing right now to then push it back higher and actually start hitting this green area. If not, if we just can't pass this area sustainably and hold the green area, then at that point I'm expecting that we're just going to come down, retest the 0.35 at 82,260, and then possibly even break down lower and then start retesting the CME gap and see if we're going to hold it or not, to see if we're going to go down or not. But the thing is, this is all going to evolve as this inflation and jobs report begins to get released this week, very, very soon. Within 24 hours, we'll have that inflation report. If things are looking good in our favor, yeah, we can easily see enough momentum to start breaking into this area. But if not, then we can start looking at that CME gap most likely as another support, so we can see how strong the price really is at these low levels. But none of this really changes when you look at the overall picture, right? There's a lot of noise in the small picture, but at the end of the day, we are 30% down, or not right now, but we reached 30% down all the way to that CME gap from the top. This is super deep discounted, especially knowing that we are still early in this last year of the bull cycle. So if you agree that demand is stronger than supply, if you agree, and you agree that a lot of this macroeconomic fear is only temporary, and there's no way this can be held for a long time, because of course a lot of this tariffs makes up a large portion of the GDP on a lot of these other countries. We are a big importer of a lot of these countries where they export to us. So if you understand that demand is so strong than supply, you understand that this is just temporary, then Bitcoin is just an amazing deal in these deep discounted levels. Now, let's just say we do get some negative news that actually pushes down the price even lower, and we actually start going lower, like low 70s, possibly even into the 60s. This is going to be super short-lived, because you guys got to remember, just like back here too, where we had a big dip into our deep discounted area, and then we broke above it super quick. Just bam, we broke above enough bullishness. When we started retesting it, we retested a little bit higher, and then we started from there. We started confirming a higher high and higher low trend. Next thing you know, we're up even higher. So at this point, what we're trying to do is we have, and if you consider that previous, if you just want to go purely off of historic patterns, we have that first dip. The second dip is lower than the first dip. Now, if we do come up, but then get rejected later on, like we've seen, if I can find it back here. So we dipped into it. We had a lower low from there. Then we had a pretty solid uptrend form, got rejected. And then the second or the third dip, I should say, was actually higher than this one. So if we see something like that again, that can be very, very bullish because it creates a bigger picture inverse head and shoulders, which I personally don't look at too much. I like to focus more on like what's really going on in the broad picture, but it is something to note because it's very much valid. Where we see here's the shoulder, the head is lower than lower on the chart than the shoulder, and then we can easily form a second shoulder higher than the head right here, and then we can start pushing up higher. That's also a possibility as well. But even, let's just say even if we do go down into the super deep red discounted area, in my opinion, it's going to recover from it super quickly. Like at this point, if I'm not buying, I'm doing something wrong. But if you guys aren't buying, like, man, you must really just be scared out. But I know a lot of people are going to be accumulating in these super discounted portion if it does happen. So right now, Bitcoin, just right now, amazing value, amazing value, well below 100K. And we're still we're still in Q1 of 2025. And we have a lot of more upside to go, at least as long as that demand and supply, foundation holds up, which so far it's holding up exceptionally well. Then we can easily start moving higher. And if we do come down lower, that's just going to back up the thesis. And then next thing you know, super quick V-shaped recovery from this deep value red. And then we're going up higher. And this is not going to last very long. Like if we go down into this area, it's not going to last very, very long. So that's even very bullish in my opinion, because if we do come down here, great deep value buying opportunity. And then soon enough, we'll be back up into the, the 70s, the 80s, and then back up to 100. If that happens, which as of right now, there is so much, so much bullishness in the price, so much reasons not to be scared. And even though stocks dipped today, Bitcoin was holding up pretty well because again, it's very discounted even at these levels. And a lot of that deep value Bitcoin is pretty much bought up. So yeah, guys, it's looking great. I'm still holding on to my BitU position and I plan to accumulate more. I plan to add much more to my BitU position if we do come down into this red area. If not, I'll just be hanging out until the price goes up higher. If it comes down, I'll buy. If it goes up higher, cool. But I would not, I don't really think it's a good idea for a lot of people to overlook these, these levels that we're in. It's amazing. Bitcoin is an amazing buy and it's just going to get better. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I'll catch you guys in the next one.